Hello everyone, welcome to the updated basics of tree farming video. In this video, we'll be going over the basics of certain tree farming techniques and growth mechanics that my last video didn't really show. Now, I still do recommend watching my other video because it does have good information in it that I think is worth knowing. Here's what I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions or critiques, please put them in the comment section down below and I'll try to pin your comment and get back to you. Alright, so there are some tree farm terms that are really worth talking about here. The first one is game tick. You may have heard this said in a lot of different videos of mine and other people's, but you might have not understood it. A game tick is 1/20th of a second or 0.5 redstone ticks, which is one repeater tick. Here is one of the latest farms that I've released, and this is 22 game tick reset, meaning the tree grows, and as you can see, after 22 game ticks or 11 redstone ticks, the tree is fully harvested, and it's ready for a new tree. The lower the reset time, the better, up until 3 game tick reset, which can be faster, but at that point it's a lost cause. Lag is something that is really important in tree farming. The laggier your farm is, the less things you can have running in the background. The way we measure lag is with TPS, which is ticks per second, or game ticks per second, which is generally 20, as I said before. We also use MSPT. MSPT stands for milliseconds per tick, or milliseconds per game tick. Preferably, MSPT will be as low as possible, with the ideal being 0 milliseconds per tick, and the server doesn't really start lagging up until 50 MSPT, and when it reaches 50.1 or higher, the server will start slowing down. And lag doesn't stack linearly, which is apparent for pistons and tile entities like droppers and furnaces. So you need to make sure your farm is as lag friendly as possible so you can have more things running in the background. If you're in single player world, it doesn't really matter as much, but it's still a good thing to do. Here are the last ones that are good to know. I'm not going to read them all out because they're pretty self-explanatory. One by one tree growth varies a little bit from version to version, but I'll explain 1.17 growth, which is pretty much 1.15 plus, and 1.12.2 growth, which is pretty much 1.14.4 and below. In 1.12.2, all trees work within this 5x5 area. This 5x5 area is very important, because it's the difference between a tree growing and not growing at all. If any block is inside this area, a tree won't grow, unless the block is a log, a piece of dirt, grass, podzol, or vines. In 1.12.2 and the old growth system, 1x1 spruce was very picky. Not even logs were allowed in the 5x5 area. The only block allowed in that area were leaves. The 5x5 area is fairly flexible though. If you look at any 4 game tick farm in 1.12, which at first thought seems completely impossible, since the fastest a DPE can go is 6 game tick. 4 game tick farms don't break this rule, rather they get around it. The pistons retract outside the 5x5 area at game tick 3. The issue with this is the 6 game tick DPEs can't run fast enough. That's why we use 2 double piston extenders, firing once every 8 game ticks, generally clocked. In 1.15 plus, this entire thing is different. Acacia didn't really change at all, but the rest of the trees got quite a bit different. Birch, jungle, and oak no longer follow the 5x5 area rule, and instead follow a 3x3 area rule, which makes a lot of farms a whole lot easier. And spruce is much less fussy. Spruce now ignores logs, but dirt and all dirt variants now block tree growth for all tree types. There is another thing at play though, something called random ticks. Random ticks are the basis for tree growth and other random events. These ticks are very annoying for big oak trees though, as random ticks can force oak to grow midway through harvest, breaking pretty much any farm that doesn't have any precautions against this. This is pretty easy to stop though. All you need to do is make sure the dirt in the middle is light level 11 or below, which is most commonly done with a roof. Detection is very important to tree farming. Now you've probably seen farms that use a comparator much like this, but these give extra reset time, which makes the farm slower, and that isn't ideal at all. Now there are more ways to detect trees than just comparators, the most common being log detection, which is pretty simple. When a tree grows, the very first block that replaces a sapling gets powered, and below the dirt, there is a piston that you would use for detection. This is one of the most common ways to do it, but it doesn't always work well with 3 dispenser setups, or not at all with 4 dispenser setups. Log detection obviously isn't the only way to detect trees. There's of course leaf detection. You can use leaf detection with a few tree types, but not all, which isn't ideal. Leaf detection is done by having buds on the side of the tree core, and when a tree grows, the leaves would update the bud, making the rest of the core fire. As said before, it only works on certain tree types, mainly birch, jungle, and oak. And that's because spruce and acacia only grow 1 leaf per layer, which means you need a bud every row, which just isn't ideal. The last detection has none of these issues, and that is called push limit detection. Now, I showed this in my last video, but I didn't really go in depth. Push limit detection is based off of some weird behavior. It makes a game think that a piston can't push even though it can, as you can see here. Now, push limit detection does have some weird properties that make it slightly hard to work with. It makes the bottom section much larger and making sinking dispensers a little harder. Let me explain. There are phases inside of a tick, and in the tile tick phase, it schedules things in a weird way. Observers, comparators, and repeaters all have the same delay in terms of game ticks, but some signals start later than others. A repeater has the highest priority, while the observers and comparators are scheduled later. This piston right here is the main output of the detection. If I power this with the repeater, and power the dispensers up here with an observer, then it is impossible to get instant detection. That piston down here schedules to fire before the tree up here will grow, because the repeater has a higher priority, as discussed before. Now the way around this is to power the bottom piston with an observer or comparator, preferably observer, so you can use observers near the dispensers. As I said before, generally you want a lower reset time, up to a certain point, but there are other things at play. You want to make sure your dispensers are timed well enough to the actual detection and reset of the farm. Dispensers and droppers fire only once every 4 game ticks, which is 2 redstone ticks, which makes even reset times ideal for tree farm. For example, a 14 game tick farm is harder to sync dispensers to, compared to a 12 game tick or 16 game tick tree farm, which matches the interval of 4. There are ways around this, however. For a 6 game tick farm, which doesn't match with the interval of 4, you can do something called cross bone mealing. Cross bone mealing is firing all dispensers slightly apart from each other. For example, 2 game tick cross bone mealing is firing 2 or 3 dispensers every 4 game ticks. The only difference is that one dispenser fires 2 game ticks after the others. So if you look right here, you can see that the dispenser on the left here fires, and after 2 game ticks, the other 2 fire, making this cross bone mealing. Now you have bone meal every 2 game ticks compared to every 4. The only other thing to talk about is the bottom section, but I already talked about the bottom section in my other video, and I recommend watching that already. If you have any more questions, I recommend joining Tree Huggers, which is the tree farming based Discord, and they can answer pretty much any question I can't, and because they know a lot more about Minecraft than I do. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Yeah, I guess it's been a while. I'm tired of editing, because I did a lot of motion graphics and tired, and anyways, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Also, behind the scenes might come out on my second channel. Wink wonk.